Okay, today we get David Yokin in supply chain. It's going to be a whirlwind of information. And then Wednesday we have pitch practice. So if you're nervous about this, or you just want to get one more presentation under your belt, we're going to be taking turns going to online people and in the room people. I did just post the check-in link. The one I just gave you is not working? Oh, okay. Hi, Justin. Welcome to the present. And then on Friday, we'll have demo day.
I'm assuming it's the same link, so maybe we just need to share it with everybody. What is, let me, we'll figure it out.
Right. I wonder if it was last year's link that didn't get updated. Okay, so today we're going to have David Yokin, and he's going to tell us more about his background, but he is a supply chain expert, and he will make it so that it's not too hard to understand. So David, anytime you're ready, you can start sharing because we'll stop.
I need you to stop sharing before I can present.
Yep, I stopped.
Well, no, it doesn't look like you stopped.
I disagree.
You disagree? No, I did. I stopped.
No, we can see it up at the top.
Share. Where is it?
Oh, up there.
Oh, there it is. You're absolutely right to disagree.
Give it a whirl now.
It should work this time.
It should.
All right. Has everyone seen that?
Hold on, we're good. We're bringing you back. Yep, we see you.
All right, cool. So thanks for having me. Happy to be here. I'm here to talk about supply chain management. Quick overview of what I'll talk about today, and then I'll present my introduction and then jump into it. Given that we have a relatively small group here, I want to make this as interactive and conversational as possible. I have a lot of information here to get through relatively quickly, but I'd much rather you jump in and ask questions and interrupt me, make this useful, than just talk at you for the 45 minutes to an hour. So what we'll talk about today is, what is a supply chain? What does that mean? It's probably a term you've heard, but haven't really thought about what that means in your business. Why should we care? The short answer to that is the big bag of money on the right. Overview and key takeaways. So I'll use a sort of nerdy supply chain operations reference model from a institute on supply chain, but I'll break that down into the 5 steps of plan, source, make, fulfill, and retain, and then do some recap and wrap up. So quick overview about myself. I'm from Vegas, grew up here, went to Bonanza High School, left for 15 years where I did a combination of supply chain strategy, graduate school, and undergrad, and built an AI startup, sold that, got back into consulting, doing supply chain and AI growth strategy, and that's what's brought me to today. So my day job is that I work for a firm called Alvarez and Marcel. I'm a director focusing on supply chain optimization, sales and inventory planning, growth strategy, improved decision making, go to market planning, and so on across a variety of industries. Just wrapped up a project doing digital transformation for a fence distributor. So figuring out how to modernize their operations through better inventory forecasting, better transportation management software, lots of core supply chain use cases. But my job can vary kind of day to day based on what client I'm serving. As I mentioned, I built a space-based AI startup called Estrella. So during that 4 years in Charlottesville, Virginia, I led business development, product strategy, marketing, operations, as we scaled that business from $0 and some cool ideas to actual technology, actual Series A, enterprise use cases, and acquisitions. Academically, I have 2 undergrads in philosophy and economics and an MBA in analytics. Probably most importantly for this, I'm passionate about the Las Vegas startup community. Been involved for a couple of years now with Maggie and the Startup MD team on helping to grow businesses in the area. It's something that when I was growing up out here in the 90s and 2000s, it didn't really exist. And I love that it does now. And I'm passionate about giving back. So during this session, after this session, happy to be a resource for anyone on the call that's looking to grow a business in the area. So with that said, I'll jump into it. And again, feel free to raise your hand or just jump in with questions as we go on. So what is a supply chain? Many of you probably think about the diagram on the right. You think about moving product from here to there. You think about moving from a supplier to an end customer through a series of distribution steps. I would encourage you to think also about an organic machine. So I like the idea of the left image, which is your cardiorespiratory system. So your heart brings in air, pumps that oxygen through your vein or your arteries, returns that through your veins, and exhales carbon dioxide. That is another form of thinking about a supply chain. It's the beating heart within each of your body. Your supply chain is basically that for your business. It's the backbone that delivers value from here to there, or the activities you undertake to make money. And every business has a supply chain, as I'll get into in a minute. Whether you're a services business, a product business, a digital business, there's a supply chain mentality that you can take that will help you to be more efficient in converting raw material into revenue. So what does that look like in practice? I like this model from the APIX as a Institute on Operations Management. They have this supply chain operations reference model or score. I'm going to use a simplified 5-step version of this here. But this is something that's studied and built upon by PhDs in operations research and widely used in the supply chain consulting industry. So your first step is plan, meaning figure out what you're going to sell and how much you're going to sell that for. It includes both designing your product and forecasting your product. This is where a lot of gains can be made if you think strategically about what you sell, how much you make on each product, and how you plan to sell through which channel. Second is source. So you've planned out what you're going to make, where you're going to sell it. You have to go out and get the materials to make your product. Third step is make. So create value from raw materials. This can take a variety of forms. This is the core manufacturing that you might do. Maybe you're assembling jewelry or you're providing services and you're training your people. This is your core value generation step. And I'll make these slides available after the call as well, just so you guys know. Fulfill is getting that value to the customers. In a traditional physical product, that's an Amazon truck showing up at your house. In a digital setting, it can be shipping code or a new feature, but it's how do you get that value out to them? And then finally, retain. This is often neglected. People think about how do we just get the product to the customer and then it's done. Well-performing businesses emphasize retention step. This is where you're building relationships with clients that will lead them to buy from you again. So that's managing returns. It's keeping customers happy. It can even just be a check-in phone call to see how they like the product. And these 5 steps in totality represent the supply chain. You can get a lot more complex with this, but I like a 5-step model because it keeps things pretty clean. So if we take this supply chain model and we go back to our idea of oxygenation, and we try to get into this mindset of supply chain as an organic capability, it's a living, breathing thing. Plan. The brain decides how deep a breath to take, right? How much oxygen do I need to bring in? The sourcing is your lungs are actually inhaling the air. The make is oxygen binds to the red blood cells. That's the manufacturing step. Fulfill is you're pumping that out to your organs and to your cells. And then return is where carbon dioxide is returned to your lungs. This is pretty conceptual, right? So what does that mean for a business? I've broken it down here in 3 different veins. One is physical products, one is services, and one is digital products. As I mentioned before, every business has a supply chain, whether you think of it that way or not, I would encourage you to adopt this way of thinking because it'll make you more organized in the way that you go to market with your business. So, first is the physical products supply chain, the thing that people most likely think of, where plan means forecast inventory, sourcing means order materials, make means you're assembling and packaging those, fulfill means shipping that product to the customer, and retention means managing those returns. Now, I don't know a lot yet about what y'all are building and the businesses y'all are building, but it's probably not all physical products. You probably have some services businesses in there where you're providing some type of capability to a customer. And I would argue services businesses also have a supply chain. You have a step at the beginning where you're planning. How much capacity do I need for a given day? What are the services that I'm going to offer? What customer types are out there? You're sourcing labor for that. You're going out and you're hiring staff. You're figuring out where do I get the people that have the skills that I need in order to deliver these capabilities. Make, in this sense, is really training your employees. You're creating the capability to deliver value by training employees in whatever the services that you're going to provide. Fulfill is delivering that service, and then retain is addressing complaints. A little bit further afield would be a digital product. So in this context, like in the software business that I led, you have a similar idea, but slightly different steps. So your plan means what's your roadmap design? What are the milestones that you're targeting? And when do you plan to do what? Sourcing is hiring your developers, hiring the tools that you need to deliver that capability. Making is writing product, writing the software. And shipping product is your fulfillment step. Even though it's not an Amazon truck, it's a committing of code. You're doing the same thing. You're shipping value to customers. And then retention in this case is what we call customer success in the digital world. But similar idea to physical product or services. So for the remainder of the talk here, I'm going to break down each of these steps into digestible components that will allow you to manage them more effectively in what you're doing within your company. But I want to pause before I do that and do a little bit of interactive, ask you a question. How does supply chain management impact your business? And here I have some folks picking coffee beans that would flow into Starbucks, right? So that's like an obvious connection, but how does supply chain management impact what you're doing in your company?
Anybody? This is Justin.
What's up, Justin?
Hey, what's up? When you say how does it impact your business, can you say a little bit more about what you're hoping to hear?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a leading question.
Yeah.
So, what's your business, Justin?
So I have both products that I make to sell, but then I also like source materials for like classes that I teach.
Okay. So, would it be fair to say that you are managing a supply chain in each of those?
Of course, yeah, the product one definitely rang true for me.
Okay.
And so I'm working with sourcing materials like internationally, but also nationally.
Okay. So you're balancing a lot of different supply chain management tasks in the way that you run your business.
Yes, and then of course, yeah, all of them pretty much, including shipping products. I haven't had to manage returns yet, thankfully.
And how did you learn about supply chain management?
I didn't realize it was called this, what I was doing.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. That's a great answer, right? Like, it's something that some business, a lot of basically every large company you can think of has a supply chain group that manages this stuff for them. But a lot of time for small business entrepreneurs, it's just expected that you know it, right? So you are operating a supply chain centric company and figuring it out along the way, right?
Yeah.
So that would be the answer to the question here of how it impacts your business is that as you start to mature, the practices around that get more in line with like what a large company would do for some of these things. or however you want to think about that, your business will be more efficient, you'll make more money, and so on. So that's the answer exactly that I was hoping to get, right? Is that you are implicitly doing this, but you haven't had the vocabulary to think about it or to go off and like Google, how do I plan more effectively? How do I develop more of a better production plan? And that's what I'm trying to get at in the next half of the talk here. So that's perfect.
Awesome. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you, Justin. And feel free to add in questions or in the chat or raise hands along the way. First, before we get into those steps, why should we care about supply chain management or SCM? And here's just the simple conceptual view. It helps you deliver faster, cheaper, and simpler. These three are often hard to pin down together, right? Getting it there faster is usually more expensive. Doing it simpler is often not cheaper. But healthy supply chain management practices will help you balance across each of those. And financially, it will benefit your outcomes. I don't know if y'all have done in this program the sort of finance 101, but I'll just start with income statement and balance sheet. So on your income statement, you have your total revenue you bring in, maybe that's $1,000 a month. Out of that, you have your cost of goods sold, which is like the materials that you buy in order to sell your product. You have your SG&A, which is your overhead, operating expenses, and then you have your net income, which is your profit that you take home. And what supply chain management does is turns red bricks into green waves. So rather than investing a lot of money in really expensive materials, you're figuring out how to do that more effectively, which translates into better net income at the end of the day.
Hi, David, we have a question online. Elizabeth is asking, so how does one become part of a power person?
Great question. So you're talking about finding other entrepreneurs in the area that are buying similar materials so that you can, yeah.
She said yes.
I would hope that Startup NV would help with some of that networking. I don't have personally, I'm not part of any groups because I don't have a business like that. But I don't know if Maggie or Shauna, if there's any.
No, I don't think we collect that information.
So it sounds like something we should try to do.
Yeah.
Great idea. Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually a good idea. Thanks, David.
Yeah, I love that idea. I think that there's probably a lot of folks out there that are doing something similar, maybe looking into local small business groups, trying to send out notes on what you're sourcing, but it's the right idea for sure of trying to pool that spend so you're getting a lower unit cost.
Agreed. We have homework. Okay.
Yeah, that's great. So on the balance sheet side, without getting into the minutia of financial statements, your balance sheet breaks down into your assets and your equity and liabilities, and assets equals equity plus liabilities. So on the asset side, you have your cash, you have your inventory, you have the receivables where people owe you money and you're waiting to collect on it, and you have your property, plant, and equipment. That has to correspond to your equity and liabilities, which is debt that you owe, money that you owe in payables to, say, a vendor, your invested capital, and your retained earnings. I'm happy to jump into the detail of this with any of you if helpful, but in essence, supply chain management is going to help you hold less inventory. A lot of the time, what happens with people that have a reactive supply chain or something that's not well planned out, you end up with a bunch of the wrong stuff. And that stuff just sits on the shelf and you're not turning it over into cash or receivables. So better supply chain planning translates into better financial performance through better inventory efficiency. which boosts your retained earnings, meaning that your company is more profitable. So I know this is a little bit into the financial minutia, but in essence, you're sourcing product more efficiently, you're turning inventory into cash more often, and you have a more profitable business. All right, so now I'm going to break down each of these 5 steps into 5 sub-steps that will help you to understand what goes into managing this most efficiently. So planning. First is market research. Know who's going to buy what. Come up with a demand forecast. And I'll show you an example of that on the next slide. Resource planning and capacity assessment. What do I need to have? When do I need to have it? Where do I need to have it? And so forth. Supply chain strategy. This is, do I make to order, make to stock? Am I a just-in-time supply chain, or am I building inventory into what level? Risk management and contingency planning. What could go wrong? What happens if things go wrong? How can I think about that in advance to reduce those potential risks? And then performance metrics. As Maggie always says, you manage what you measure. And your metrics and continuous improvement are critical for ongoing performance. So what to think about when it comes to planning. This is a big amorphous type of thing. Lots of people spend their entire career just as supply chain planners, demand planners. So first is decide what to sell and design it. Understand what are your SKUs, your unique items that you're going to sell. Make a guess of what you're going to sell in each month of each of those, and then make a forecast, probably a moving average. And I'm going to jump into some math here in a second on that. But track what you sell. Very often for small businesses, you're going out, showing up at say a farmer's market or a retail venue, and you're just so busy with selling stuff that you don't know at the end of the day what you actually sold. That's bad. Got to keep track of what you sell. And then that allows you to measure your variability and accuracy. So this is a little bit detailed, but bear with me here as we jump into some math. So the goal of this slide is to talk through building out a forecast for your company. And here we're going to use what's called a 3-month rolling forecast. So first, look at the actual sales table. You have your SKU or unique item A, B, and C. And this could be, say, if you own a fudge company, it could be your chocolate walnut fudge, your white chocolate pistachio fudge, and your peanut butter caramel fudge. And you know that as sales roll in, these are the actual data of what you sell in those months. But leading into each of those months, you need to build inventory. You have to have a sense of how much you're going to sell of each one. So the way that I recommend that is in these blue boxes. So you have, in your first month, you're basically making a guess. Say you guess 15 of each of them. And it comes in similar to 15, but not really. So then in month 2, you basically just forecast what you sold in month 1 for each of these SKUs. So for your chocolate walnut fudge, you sold 10 of them in month 1, then your forecast for month 2 is going to be 10. And that might break down across certain events. Say you do this per farmer's market you go to, or whatever your selling venue is, right? If you're selling online, you do it monthly, but the same concept holds. And then month 3, you're taking an average of month 1 and month 2. So for that same chocolate walnut, you're going to average 15 and 10, come out to about 13. And over time, what you'll see is that the forecast converges closer to what the actual sales are going to be. So This is the formula for it. Like month N is the average of month N minus 3, N minus 2, N minus 1. So here, 15, 10, and 5, you're averaging about 10. There you can get into a lot of depth around forecasting and supply chain planning and the logic that's underneath this, but a 3 month rolling average, maybe with a seasonal correction, is probably sufficient for the level of complexity that you're dealing with. And the point here is that having a forecast allows you to plan. If you have a number that you're working towards, you can plan to make that number. You can adjust that number up and down over time, but you're not just guessing, you're actually working from the data. Again, you start with the guess, but then you start to work with the data over time. So moving from planning to sourcing, and again, feel free to interrupt me. First step is identify your suppliers, vet your suppliers, figure out who you're going to work with. Second step, negotiate and establish agreements with them. Understand what are the service levels that they're going to provide? When are they going to provide material? When you place an order, how long do they have to get you that material? So on. Plan out those relationships. Make sure that you're in contact with them, not just when you need something, but say you have feedback or you want to check in or you want to make sure that you have close relationships with your vendors because they're the lifeblood of your business. Step 4 is actually receiving the product. Receive, inspect, and validate. Make sure that what you're getting from them is what you want before you pay for it. Tell them that it's not what you want if it's not what you want before you pay for it. And then 5th is to optimize and scale the sourcing strategy over time. So key takeaways on sourcing. 1 is start small with test purchases. Some suppliers are going to be more amenable to this than others, but for the scale of business that you're working on, see if they'll do sample purchases. See if you can get in a little bit of product so that you can see that you like what they provide. Second is long-term reliability. So a lot of the time in the sourcing world, people think of this image of squeezing a lemon and like, I'm going to beat up my supplier as much as I can and try to squeeze every last drop out of them. I would encourage you instead to think about it as a river system. So Colorado River flows through Las Vegas. Many rivers flow into the Colorado River. Suppliers are like the tributaries, those small rivers. Your business is the river. Think about how a long-term mindset is going to lead to better profitability over time. It's not just like how much can I squeeze a supplier for pennies in a certain deal. It's how do we set up this system that builds a strong river. Have redundant suppliers. So doesn't mean that you need to be spreading all of your spend across a bunch of different suppliers all the time. You can have your favorite suppliers, but have a plan if one of them goes out of business. Don't let that kill your business. That happens all the time. Don't let that kill your business. Build those relationships. Have a point person, point of contact there. Say you need to get some emergency product overnight. Know who you're going to call and have a good relationship with that person so that they help you out. And then negotiate more than price. Don't just think about, I'm going to source some walnuts from this supplier for 30 cents per ounce or whatever it is. Yes, that's part of it, but also how quickly do they get me that product? What's the quality level that I expect? What happens if something goes wrong, right? Think about it as a holistic relationship and think about them as the tributaries to your river. So conversion, your manufacturing or your make step. First is establish your production workflow. Far too often, this is done reactively. It's like you get all your materials in and then you figure it out. Think in advance of how you're going to build your stuff, whether that's training employees or whether that's making fudge or candles or cups or plates or whatever it might be. Think about how you're going to actually do that because that'll guide the materials you source. Step 2 is actually do it. Execute the offering that you've put forth. Third is optimize. So once you have your workflow in place, think about which steps are actually adding the value and where you can cut out some of that noise. Fourth is quality control, very critical. And the fifth step is refine and scale. So in essence, get your production workflow in place, improve it over time. Eventually it'll scale. And key takeaways on this are a little bit more conceptual than the previous two. The first is make means create value. So you can call this make step assemble, package, build, train, fabricate, construct, synthesize, write, code, create, paint, draw, weave, whatever it might be, right? But the important thing is that you're creating value at each process step. Oftentimes, small businesses will do stuff during this point of the supply chain that makes no sense, but they've just always done it that way. And when you write it down on paper of this is my production workflow, you'll realize that like a third of the time that you spend on this stuff doesn't actually contribute value to the end product. So focus on creating value at each process step. Second is quality. So you don't have to get fully in depth with how you're going to set up this lean Six Sigma Toyota production system, elaborate, like continuous improvement system, but have a metric, whether it's first, these are some common manufacturing ones, is first pass yield, scrap rate, OEE, but also something like net promoter score, which is basically net promoter score means you ask each customer, how likely are you to refer X business to a friend, 1 to 10. And then that average of that 1 to 10 across customers is your NPS. That's a quality metric. Just pick a quality metric and measure it. Track it over time. And I guarantee you that you'll start to see these fluctuations that are a critical barometer for your business success because your customers notice the quality. And sometimes it's hard to notice the quality coming in.
Hi, David. We have a question.
Yep.
So Elizabeth is asking, so for nonprofits, are metrics for supply chain performance with gifted/vendor resources? So I'm tracking traditional metrics and mission-driven outcomes, reach, timelines, beneficiary impact, question mark. Elizabeth, you might want to provide a little bit more context if you want to unmute.
Can you say a little bit more, Elizabeth, about your nonprofit?
There she goes.
Sure. Like so my nonprofit is Earthleets. It essentially, we use like an example would be like if it's sports, right? If my nonprofit is needing jerseys and socks and stuff that we're giving to the youth for, say, a tournament of some sort, then am I tracking all of those actual hard goods? And then, but also because with nonprofits, we have to track everything, right? So like the percentage of goods received, and then did it actually reach its beneficiaries and distribution, cost per beneficiary, stuff like that. So is that something that's part of this, or am I just only because I have with the nonprofit, you have to track reach and don't and like have a donation log, like the date, donor, pledge value, goods category, delivery time. So all of those metrics, like a traditional business, but there's an additional thing for nonprofits because of all of the things they have to measure.
Yeah, and that's a really good question. So I'm on the board of a nonprofit back in Virginia that does a combination of prison reentry and job skills for folks. And it's not a traditional supply chain by any means. And one of the key challenges within that is restricted versus unrestricted revenue. So you probably have some money that's coming in where you have to report on certain metrics against it. Hopefully you have some money that's less restricted where you can use it as needed for the program. On the stuff where you have to report on your mission driven outcomes for whether that's for grants or other specific revenue sources, you're going to have to do that, right? The way that I would recommend thinking about this from a supply chain lens is, and I don't think I don't have a row on here for nonprofits, but I should probably add one for next time I do this. Think about the process that leads to the outcome. So for reach, you may have a supply chain within your operation that's specifically, like you mentioned, sports. So for sports, you probably have a specific supply chain for like how do you manage getting the right equipment that you need on time and getting the right number of kids through the program. Maybe like the service supply chain that's laid out here. The answer to your question is yes, like for nonprofits, metrics for supply chain performance are applicable for gifted or vendor resources, but only insofar as it's servicing your mission driven outcome. Because a business is typically looking at revenue as like the thing that we're trying to drive for a small business, revenue and margin, right? Making sure it's profitable revenue. Whereas you're working backwards from a slightly different outcome, right? For you, it might be impact that you're tracking, but you're going to have supply chains and supply chain activities that are embedded within your operation that drive that end outcome. So it's figuring out what are those supply chains and then applying this mindset to those supply chain activities to improve the efficiency with which you're bringing about your reach or timeliness to beneficiary impact, those mission driven outcomes. So think about where you have the supply chain embedded and then how do you manage that supply chain via these steps. Does that help?
Yes, it does. Thank you. Thank you for bridging that impact and relationship metrics, because that's really what I was confused about. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, often because this talk is more oriented towards for-profit businesses, we're looking at like how do we generate profitable revenue. In the nonprofit space, you're looking at how do we bring about outcomes, but you still have operational steps to get there. And it's figuring out what those operational steps are and then applying rigor to those so that you're expanding the amount of reach, which helps you to get more grants and so on. Great question, though. And I'll definitely add a nonprofit row because we got a question on that last time as well. So zooming through here, and feel free to follow up with me after, Elizabeth. Happy to drill in on that. I'm particularly interested in nonprofits and the application of this kind of thinking. So happy to help. So zooming through here, we are now already to the fulfill step of our presentation here. And fulfillment is what a lot of people think about with supply chain. Think about a warehouse, think about an Amazon truck. This is where the value gets to the customer. I've broken it down into 5 steps here. These could get a lot more complex. Each one of these could be a whole field. There are people that spend all their time just optimizing the logistics. I'm sure Amazon employs literally thousands of people that just plan where their trucks go. But for the sake of what we're talking about here, these 5 cover the fulfillment steps. So order management and customer interface. How are you getting those orders in from customers? That could be in person at a market or at a retail pop-up. It could be a landing page, but make sure it's smooth. If you have a landing page, don't make them click a bunch of stuff and make it confusing. Make it easy and get those orders into a system where you can process them quickly. When we order from Amazon, that order, like I ordered something today for my girlfriend that's showing up tonight, that click of a button, send an order into their system that immediately went to their warehouse, and a robot went and picked that out and put it on a truck. Think about, how do you get to a smooth back end for your own orders? Plan and optimize logistics. Are you taking delivery orders? Are you going out and bringing stuff to customers? If you do that, how do you be efficient with that? Like, are you going to Northtown and then Henderson and then Summerlin and then the East Side and then Northtown and then Summerlin and then Henderson the same day? No, you're going to group your orders. Inventory management is critical and is a particularly interesting area where a lot of money can be made. Execution just means getting that product to the customer, and then measuring your performance. OTIF means on time in full. So if you have 10 bracelets that you're shipping and 9 of them get there efficiently, you don't get a 9 out of 10, you get a 0. You should measure OTIF. Key takeaways on fulfillment, and this one has a little bit of math involved as well. Quick story on this is the map that I showed earlier was actually from a client of mine from last year that moves a few $100 billion in pharmaceutical drugs a year. And this is me in their warehouse actually picking orders from their shelves and stocking them into these red crates that show up at CVS every morning. They have an unbelievable scale of what they work on. All of these blue pallets that you see here are just extra gloves that they had since COVID, and they're just holding on to them. And the reason that I bring this up is to say that even big companies screw up with supply chain planning and inventory. So they've spent hundreds of millions of dollars over the last 3 years just holding on to these blue gloves. So don't be like them, right? Think about how you're turning over your inventory most effectively. And that boils down to 5 rules. So first is know what you have and know what you buy. Keep track of your inventory. Hopefully this isn't a super laborious thing for you, but this can be on a spreadsheet. Hopefully it's in something a little bit more sophisticated, like QuickBooks is a decent tool for inventory management. Second is to measure inventory in days. So this is a critical way, a change in your thinking that will make you leapfrog like 90% of the small businesses out there. Think about your inventory in days. So SKU A, which is our chocolate walnut fudge, say you have 100 in stock, you sell about 10 per day, that's 10 days worth of inventory. SKU B is our white chocolate pistachio, you got 20 in stock, you sell 5 per day, you got 4 days on hand. SKU C is you have 10 in stock, I think that's caramel peanut butter fudge, 2 per day, that means you have 5 days on hand. So
Could you tell your girlfriend that Roxana would like to try the chocolate walnut fudge, and I'll take some off of her hands from in stock?
Anna would like the chocolate walnut fudge.
Thank you.
She's listening in for as well. But that the business is on the way, by the way. She's working on it. So, so why is this important? The inventory days on hand allows you to line that up against your lead time. So some of your products are going to have longer lead times than others. Maybe you're ordering some product from overseas and it takes you like 3-4 weeks to get in what you need, whereas some's going to be quicker. So in the case of SKU C here, the peanut butter caramel fudge, you only have 5 days on hand. You know that you're going to keep selling these. It takes 10 days to get it in. You got to place an order, right? Whereas SKU A, you have 10 days on hand and it only takes 2 days to get more. You don't need to place an order. So once you start thinking in terms of number 2 and 3, I'm telling you, you're going to jump ahead of many small businesses out there. Thinking about it in terms of days is critical. Number 4 is more philosophical, but excess is probably better than out of stock. I would recommend erring on the side of having a little bit too much extra inventory rather than not enough, because you don't want to miss sales as a small business. You want to get your forecast right, right? But you don't want to be out of stock. Customer comes to you, you want to have what they want. And then ship and deliver what's demanded. This should be self-explanatory, but make sure you're getting that product to the customer. And then finally, retain, or customer retention, or service, as it's often called. Step one is establish clear return and support policies. That should be a page on your website, or an FAQ, or something you have on your at the market. Let customers know if they don't like your product, you'll replace it, you'll send it back. Execute on the reverse logistics. Don't, if a customer asks for a return, don't wait 3 weeks and put it to the bottom of your stack. Customers hate that. Prioritize customer engagement. Track and manage service requests so that you're not waiting on those. And then as you do start to track this stuff, you'll see that throughout this, I've been talking about manage what you measure, track stuff, track everything you can. Don't get too crazy with it, but the more data you have on your operational performance, the more analysis that you can do, the more trends you can spot, and you can prevent issues. And that's how you get out of the firefighting mode. A lot of small businesses are in this firefighting mode where they're reacting to what's going on. There's a problem. Oh, I fixed that problem. And then I move on. And then 6 months later, I've been living in this stressful, high cortisol, chaotic firefighting mode. The way to get out of that is through data. Track what you sell, what you plan to sell, your quality, service. You'll start to be able to see those patterns that get you ahead of the curve. And then fifth is customer success and enablement. So when we think about the key takeaways in the retention step, the first is invest in great customer service. You'll get a return, pun intended. Customer service is something that differentiates successful businesses from non. Like y'all know Zappos that bought City Hall here in town. They sell shoes, but what they really do is treat customers well. They've cornered the market on customer satisfaction. And that's what keeps customers coming back. It's this last step that's often neglected of retaining and servicing customers, providing that reverse logistics or whatever it might be, right? Maybe it's in a digital business or a service business. You have a customer that comes in and has a question and you answer them promptly, respectfully, efficiently. You're there, like that matters. And the reason it matters in business terms is the ratio. This is an MBA concept, but the ratio of customer lifetime value to customer acquisition costs. So customer lifetime value is just how much you make from a customer over the whole time that they're in relationship with your business. Say a customer on average spends like $100 with you a year and they're with you for 3 years before they stop ordering. Your customer lifetime value is $300. Now say your customer acquisition cost is maybe you place an ad to attract that customer, or you spend money to show up at a farmer's market, whatever it might be. Say you, and there's, if you look into this term, customer acquisition costs, like on any AI tool, you'll find a lot more about that. And hopefully you're thinking about this whole deck as like stuff you can go and research more, because each of these key terms will have a lot of detail behind them. But say that your customer acquisition costs, marketing, whatever it might be, say you spend like $30 on that customer. Well, $300 over $30 is 10. And that means that your customer lifetime value over customer acquisition costs of 10 is phenomenal. If you can be a business that has those, what are called unit economics, you're going to explode. You're like, that's really profitable. It's one way to look at, is a business going to succeed or not? Because if you're, say that same customer spends $5 with you over 1 year and it costs you $50 to acquire them, you're spending a bunch of money, people don't convert and it's really expensive, then your ratio is going to be 1/10, less than 1. Your business will fail. So the reason to think about customer service is that it's maximizing your customer lifetime value. You're getting more repeat business from the same customer. And that's what I call the virtuous cycle. So customer relationships means you're getting better feedback from customers on what you could do, but also you're just getting more revenue over time. That allows you to plan and make better, which allows you to have a more successful company. So recapping here towards the end, and then I'll open it up for questions. Why should we care about supply chain management? Faster, cheaper, simpler, less cost of goods sold, more cash, working capital efficiency, meaning that you're turning your inventory into money. Good supply chain management is good business management. I would argue good nonprofit management as well. And every business has a supply chain, as we spoke on the coffee slide a little bit. So I'll run through key takeaways for each of these. Oh, I guess I will not. I guess I didn't load that on these slides. In essence, I would just say top of the head, plan is have a number, know what you're going to sell, and have a guess of what you're going to sell each month. It's fine if it's wrong, but don't just think, oh, I'll just wait for the market to tell me. Have an idea of it, because without that, you're just flying blind and you're only going to be in the reactive mode. Getting into the proactive mode requires that you have a forecast. Sourcing, big takeaway is suppliers are your tributary. You are the powerful river. Don't think of it as how can I push these suppliers around. You don't have enough leverage to do that anyway. Think about how do I build a system that is net accretive over time. Key takeaway for make would be generate value at each step. Think about what your production workflow is and be deliberate in the way that you allocate time to converting materials. Most small businesses will have a lot of waste in the production process, and you'll probably find just by writing down each of your process steps and then timing yourself on each of them when you do it, that there's probably some wasted time, wasted effort. And if you can cut a third of the time out of that process each time, it's huge for your business. Fulfillment, like I mentioned, think about inventory in days and think about your lead time in relation to the amount that you need to keep on the shelf. And then service is invest in your relationships. Don't skimp on service. Think of it as a way to grow your revenue. And that's all I got. This is my email and LinkedIn. Feel free to reach out directly via email, connect on LinkedIn. Like I said at the outset, I am passionate about the Vegas startup community, and I am happy to be a resource, happy to help.
Thanks, David. Any questions?
Anybody online? Oh, we got a thank you. We got Elizabeth. Awesome. Thank you. Got some thank yous. Any questions specifically related to anybody's business?
So we'll post his deck up there with the video, probably by Wednesday. At least I hope so. And then as you guys get your businesses set up more and you dabble into this forecasting, you'll have his email and you can reach out to him again. It's the 3-month rolling average that you might have a little bit of trouble with, but David can help you.
Yeah, I'm definitely happy to. And there may be other forecasting methods that are even more applicable for your business, but feel free to reach out and happy to connect.
Yeah, and you'll know your customers over time. Like in the fudge business, if there's somebody that comes to town every other month and buys you out of your chocolate walnut fudge, then
that's
you know
Roxana.
yeah, it's Roxana. And
Yeah,
so you have
even if those sales have a hefty commission on them, it's probably still good for the vendor.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Is anybody doing commission sales? I don't think so, David.
I was referring to me skimming off of Alex's profits.
Oh, okay. It's the quality control.
Yeah, that's right. Somebody has to.
Okay. Everybody good?
Yeah.
All right. So thank you. Now I'm going to find the demo day sign up link and post it in chat. So give me a minute to do that. And then we'll put the other QR code for check-in for the people in the room here who I don't think had it. Shannon said, thank you. This is very helpful. And thank you, David, for coming. Appreciate it.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Okay. Don't end it yet, so I can put that demo day link in there. I'm sorry for the late response here. Programs. Hi, Justin. Thank you.
Am I good to drop?
Yes, David.
All right,
Thank
cool.
you.
All right.
Okay,
Take care, y'all. Bye.
here comes the link, guys. There you go. Okay, so we'll leave that up for a couple more minutes. And do we want to bring Shauna, if you can come over here and find that slide so it'll be up on the TV for the people in the room.
Yes.
Oh yeah, we can stop recording. Thank you, everybody. See you Wednesday.